and welcome. My name is Scott Gross, and today I am so pleased to have Susie McQuade joining us. Susie is the ESOL coordinator for the Goffstown School District, and she's also our elementary EL teacher. And the first question I have to ask Susie is that there are more acronyms surrounding your occupation. Can you tell us the kind of like the distinction between ESOL, EL, ELL? It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, there are a lot. And the first one, I think, is the big umbrella term, and that's ESOL, and that's English for Speakers of Other Languages. And we call our program the ESOL program. So it encompasses all of the services, the learners, the families, everything we do. EL stands for English Learner. So oftentimes, in emails, we'll say we have 7 ELs in grade 2 or something like that. We're referring to English learners. ML is another way we can refer to English learners, but it is multilingual learners, which a lot of districts have been adopting now because it captures more of the diverse family dynamics that we see. Some parents are speaking multiple languages in the home. Some kids are speaking multiple language, not just English and a Spanish. There could be multiple languages happening.
Now, some people, they've heard that in the Manchester School District, for an example, that there are so many different languages that are spoken amongst the student population. But do you think parents or people in Goffstown and New Boston would be surprised about the different languages that are primary languages for students here?
We have over 18 different languages, give or take every year. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, that represent the kids in our schools. And it is surprising for some people. I think when you're comparing to a district as large as Manchester, we refer to ourselves as like a small incidence district, but we are much more diverse than I think people realize.
So I'm really curious, what got you started in this type of career? I mean, is this something that you specialized in college, or how did you get into it?
So I went to UNH in Durham, and I was an English major. I love English. I loved English literature. And I was getting to the point where I started realizing that I think that I really want to teach. And my now mother-in-law said, she worked in Manchester in one of the middle schools. And she said, why don't you come over and visit one of my classrooms? I teach English learners and just see what it's all about. And it was awesome. I met so many different kids from so many different backgrounds, different grade levels, and the classroom dynamic was really cool, and I was hooked.
So you mentioned before that we could have, give or take, 18 to 20 plus students whose primary language is other than English. How do you communicate with students, especially ones at an early age where English is not their primary language? And I have to assume that you don't speak 18 to 20 different languages.
Yes. So the first question that a lot of people ask me is, what languages do you speak? And my answer to that is English. I only speak English. I think that I could piece together some Spanish. I took it in high school, but it doesn't help me when I have a family who comes from Turkey or Ukraine or Romania or Brazil. A lot of people might assume that, Portuguese and Spanish are similar. They are not.
Yeah.
So my job isn't to learn their language and act as a translator. My job is really to find out what they know and kind of bridge that gap and help them figure out how we can learn the language that everyone else is speaking in their classrooms and what they're learning.
So I have to assume too that during this process, not only are the students may not be speaking English as a primary language, but you would have their parents or guardians. So how do you address that, or what tools do you have at your disposal so that you can effectively support these students?
Yeah. So oftentimes we will get students who enroll in our district that might to you and I sound like they speak fluently, and speaking, by the way, is just one aspect of
Right.
having a learning a language. So, their oral language might seem fluent, but having parents that speak other languages at home might impact the way they learn in English. So, um, it often depends on um, what the parents are able to say or how they are able to communicate. I find that it's really helpful to be a friendly face if I know a family is going to show up. We don't always get the luxury of being able to greet them at the door. I mean, I'm in several different buildings. My other colleague, Bo Watchke, is in other buildings as well. So we can only be in one place, but we try to be as welcoming as possible and help them navigate using translators. We can hire translators whenever possible. Sometimes I'm sitting in the lobby of an elementary school filling out paperwork with a mom or a dad using, my translator app to clarify questions.
That was the question I was going to
Yeah.
ask you. What type of technology do you use when there's a student or a family member who does not speak English as a primary language?
Yeah. So when it's obvious that English is going to be a challenge for the parents, um, my job is to communicate in the best way that I can, which is to use some kind of translator app. They're not perfect, as we know. I think any language teacher in this
Right.
school district would say, like, that's not going to be a great translation, but our goal isn't to have a perfect translation. It's to just kind of get the gist of what we need to get, what information we need to get. So oftentimes I will use like a Google Translate, um, and which is great because it has like the speaker on it, and sometimes even just the effort you put in to doing something like that, you can see families just visibly relax, and they feel like they're welcome and they don't feel like they're in fight or flight mode, because they don't want to feel out of place. So, and there's a lot of forms, a lot of paperwork,
Really?
and
I'm only kidding. Yeah.
and a lot of
There's a lot of
forms.
forms.
Yeah. So it's difficult to navigate for a family.
So you mentioned that you have a partner, Bo.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't have like a self-contained program
Correct.
for these students. So you and Bo travel around the different schools in the district, including you're working now virtually a little bit in New Boston
Yes.
to support them. So talk to me a little bit about that. I would assume that you're also assisting their primary instructors as well, right? They're a
Correct.
grade level teacher.
Yeah. Our role is pretty fluid. At the high school, we have an ESL class or ELD. ELD would be English language
There's another
development.
acronym.
There's another one. There are many more.
All right.
Many more. And that is a class that is first thing in the morning for our English learners. And that is what Bo teaches. They are working on language specific activities, but they're also getting support from other classes. A student might have a biology project that they have to do, or a test, and they need extra time or some directions modified, or the project modified in some way. So Bo is really great at adapting to their different needs. He will go to classrooms. I know that he goes into classrooms and takes notes for
Right.
kids, especially kids who aren't aren't speaking English yet, or writing or reading in English. So while the content might be accessible to them in their language, he's helping them consume it all in that setting, and then they can kind of like review it again together. But as far as the middle schools and the elementary schools go, we are in classrooms and meetings with other teachers all the time. Sometimes there's a little bit of pull out instruction, like you'd see with like a reading specialist or
Right.
a Title I instructor. But a lot of times we are in the classrooms supporting the students, supporting the teachers too. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for how long now?
This is my 14th year in Goffstown and 15th year teaching. Yeah.
So what has been rewarding about, being an ESOL coordinator or an EL teacher? What's been some of the rewarding, or can you give us examples of any just things that keep you going?
There are so many stories. I joke with a few teacher friends that we could just write a book on quotes from kids and moments that just are heartwarming, hysterical, um, heartbreaking sometimes. But there are a lot of moments. One in particular I remember is when I was a first year teacher here. I had a student who his family had to overcome a lot of adversity. And this kid was a charmer and, won the hearts of all of his teachers, eventually became a class president and did some work with the governor on some anti-drug advocacy and has gone on to get his business administration degree at a college. I had another student who I remember was deathly afraid to stand up in front of the class during morning meeting at Glen Lake. And I saw her last year at the Bartlett Field Day as one of the high schoolers that came to volunteer and help kids move from station to station. And she was so bubbly and excited. And it was just so awesome to see her in a leadership role when I remember when she was, this tiny little thing that was just afraid of her own shadow.
Yeah.
So
That must be a
it's very
big thing that you can see students build confidence, and for a variety of reasons. But for you, it's primarily their ability to express themselves in a language that might not be their native language
right.
originally. You had mentioned to me before that you were involved in, I guess, a partnership with, I think, with emergency responders. Talk to me a little bit about that, how you, help them navigate, because in some cases, police and fire are under the same type of situation. They may not be able to speak a language, native language themselves.
Exactly.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the initiatives that Bo was starting in the high school was just getting people from the community to come in and kind of show our English learners what their roles were in the community and how to access certain resources. So one of them was we had our student resource officer come in and talk about emergency protocols and how to dial 911 and what questions might be asked when you get 911 on the phone.
So things that,
yeah,
as an English speaker, we take for granted.
Right.
For someone who does not speak English fluently,
Right.
or it could be a big challenge.
Right. These are moments where I think as native English speakers, we would be in panic, fight or flight mode as a baseline, and then to add another language in the mix,
Right.
And to not be confident in your understanding of what the directions are or what the protocol is can be really scary. So
skipping subjects just a little bit. We're here at Goffstown High School. That's where the studio is. And I was right by the gym. And on the bulletin board, there were students who have what's called a seal of biliteracy.
yes.
And there were quite a few students. What is that seal of biliteracy, and how are you involved in that, if you are, to any degree?
So I can't take credit for any of that work. Bo and a few of the high school staff have really done some major groundwork in getting that here in Goffstown. And it's a way for students, not just English learners, but any student to demonstrate their expertise in multiple languages. What that means is if you're awarded that seal, you get the state seal on your diploma, and it goes on your official transcripts. And this looks really great for colleges or
even employers.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to get, and it's a very new award. So I think it's only been a few
A
years.
couple of years
Yeah.
I've seen that.
But since they started, I think we've had someone, at least one or two, a few English learners that have received that award
Yeah.
from Goffstown. So
So you mentioned before that you're going into your 15th year, or this is your 15th
yeah.
year. What do you think is a common misconception of what you do, or the ESOL program overall?
I think a common misconception is that English learners are operating at a deficit and that they're struggling.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know that they have many strengths, and have potentially overcome a lot of adversity, and they have a lot of cultural experience from just, maybe their families, where they came from, that that contribute to their experience. And I think that when we can kind of tap into those strengths, you realize that these students are an asset.
If there were, parents or, viewers out there who were curious about what type of support would a non-English speaker get, here in the Goffstown School District, what words of encouragement or reinforcement would you want to share with them?
So I think support has to be multi-layered, because it there's so much involved in registering your child at school and who you're going to greet at school, how to buzz into the door.
So this is not so much about learning a language. It's really everything associated that maybe as a primarily an English speaker, we might take for granted, but for them, it could just be reading an exit sign could be an issue.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's forms, platforms that you're signing on for, permission slips, photo permissions, all the things that food permissions, all the things that we need to have paperwork on, birth certificates, who is in the front office. We have wonderful administrative assistants in every building that are the first to greet these families a lot of the times. And they have it down to science for how they can support these families. And sometimes it's just like giving one of us a call, and we can, jet down to whatever school they're at, or make an appointment to come when we are there. But it can be just getting them in the door and for them to know that we have their kids safe and secure, and they belong here. So
I love that
yeah.
they belong here. So in closing, what is your hope for your program, the one that you and Bo are responsible for here in Goffstown? What's your hope for the ESOL program in the district?
So my hope is that more and more teachers and staff become comfortable working with English learners. I see that trend happening already. When I first started working here, there was a level of, trepidation for some staff, and it wasn't coming from anywhere but just a place of fear in that I don't know how to support this student.
Okay.
So I see a lot more staff now that feel confident in supporting these kids, and I hope that we have more families that are culturally and linguistically diverse. That's another acronym that we can throw in there, that come to our schools and feel welcome here. So that's
Well, thank you so much, Susie. And he's not here, but we should say thank you to Bo.
Yes.
He was
Thank you, Bo.
your
Yeah.
partner here. And I think I want to kind of close it on this. I want to thank you and Bo for making all students feel welcome, whether English is their primary language or not. So thank you for all that you do. And again, I want to thank the Goffstown community for supporting those who might not speak English as their primary language and giving them the grace and patience that we all deserve. So thank you. Thank you again for coming in.
Thank you so much.